let's talk about unloading and loading. Before you actually get to installing the pipe, what happens on the job site, or what things to look out for on the job site before you actually get into installation. CPPP pipe comes in a lot of shapes and sizes, 4-inch through 60-inch. It comes in coils, it comes in sticks, and depending upon how that pipe is delivered, it could be unloaded and loaded in different manners. But the first thing you want to do when the pipe shows up is you want to inspect it. You want to make sure that the pipe isn't damaged. Make sure that there are gaskets on the pipe, that the gaskets are intact, that they're still protected before that pipe is received to the job site. And then obviously unload it, and then handle it, etc. And there are a couple of ways to do that. Large diameter pipe, we recommend on large diameter pipe that the pipe, there's like three points of handling, a third, and then a third from the pick point with like a strap, especially large diameter pipe. If you try to pick it up in the center of the pipe, it can swivet and pivot, and it can kind of get unwieldy and potentially create some safety concerns and potentially damage the pipe as well. So again, that third up top pick point. If the pipe is small enough, 18-inch and less, or 18-inch diameter and smaller, it's pretty easy to handle just by hand. It can have, two people can pick it up and move it around fairly easily.
Or you and I could handle 24.
Well, maybe I can. I don't know about you, Dan, but maybe I can. All right, site storage. So again, before we actually start putting pipe in the ground, a couple of other things to look at. Stabilization techniques. It's very common, especially for stick pipe when it's delivered to the job site, that it's stored in like a pyramid fashion. So again, for safety concerns and preventing any damage to that pipe, you want to make sure that there's blocking on the side of the pipe to make sure that it doesn't want to roll in either direction. And then and when you're storing it in that manner, you want to make sure that the bells and spigots are alternating. So you want the bells on one side, the spigots on the other side, as is shown, like that, as is shown on the graphic. If you put the bells all in one direction, there could be the tendency for the bells to kind of squash each other, depending upon the bell flare on the pipe. So again, you want to make sure that bells on one side, spigots on the other. We talked about the gaskets before. If the pipe is delivered with gasket, you want to make sure that the gaskets are intact, that they're still protected, and make sure that that's verified, again, when it gets to the job site, and it's maintained that way during storage. If fittings are associated with the project, make sure the fittings are stored with the pipe. It's very easy to sometimes lose the fittings on the job if they're not stored together. A lot of times the fittings are loose, so again, just some care with actually handling those, setting them on the job site, and making sure that they're kind of in the same place as the pipe is always a good practice. Operating temperature of CPP pipe, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 plus. There is UV protection in the pipe, so sometimes the question comes up about extended storage. And with the carbon black, and then with UV inhibitors and gray pipe, which is typical for polypropylene pipe, that negates or takes care of any issues of potential UV concerns or UV resistance, especially if the pipe is stored on the job for an extended period of time.
And the gaskets are probably most UV susceptible.
Correct.
And that's partly why they're wrapped on delivery. Right. So the gasket should be wrapped when it's delivered, and the wrap should stay on until it's ready for installation.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that later, making sure you remove it when you're installing it. And then the last thing, especially for a large project that's got a fairly long length to it, it's also common for, instead of stockpiling it in like that pyramid fashion, to actually string the pipe out, stick by stick by stick, and that way when you go to install it, it's right there and ready to be put in, rather than having to go back to like a central stockpile to get to the pipe. If you do all that, just make sure that the pipe is on level ground, so that and there's no protrusions in the ground, like no rocks or anything that could be sticking up that could be damaging the pipe. You want to make sure it's flat and level, again, with no debris on the ground that could potentially damage the pipe.